Right? It's not exciting to you necessarily, but it makes a huge difference out here. All right?
Frank is often thought of as the bad guy of street scene, but in reality, Frank is not a bad guy. Frank does what he's supposed to do. He comes home to what he thinks is disobedience. He comes home to what he perceives as the failure of his wife, not making sure his kids are doing what they need to do in order to grow up right. And you could even argue that he does get mistreated by his family and his wife for how hard he works for them.
Never mind all that, she shouldn't be staying out night without us knowing where she is.
But she didn't say a word about not coming home, not.
That's what I'm saying, ain't it? It's a mother's place to know what a daughter's doing.
Things are different nowadays from what they used to be.
Not in my family, and I'm gonna be no different. As long as I got something to say.
Hello, Mr. Maurrant.
He's a man living in the reality. And his issues are, he's got 2 kids that he's looking after and who he's concerned about. And he sees other people in his line of work and kids around there who aren't living up to the standards that he was made to live up to when he was a kid. He's got a wife who has somehow stayed perpetually in the same state of optimism throughout their entire relationship. One of the actors that I kind of looked towards whenever I was thinking about people that play the type of characters that Frank is really well was the actor Chris Cooper, and more specifically his works in October Sky and American Beauty. Mostly because you see how a father who needs to have control over his family, and how often at times his stern behavior becomes almost comical. More specific in American Beauty, but also in October Sky, whenever he says, "You gotta work the mills, you gotta work the mines like your old pop." It's almost a joke. I think most people try to make sure he's like, "Oh, I'm scared of Frank." But I think it's okay to think Frank's a little funny for being how stern he is and how he always repeats himself, and he's so predictable in the same manner all the time. Now what I'm telling you is there's going to be trouble.
Right? All right? And safety. What was safety like?
Innocent as a...
Probably from being busted up around too much as a kid by his dad. I imagine his dad is more or less identical to what he has turned out to be. He's honestly a fairly easy character to play because he's an open book. And he says what he thinks and what he feels. Frank expects what he expects. And he always tells you what's on his mind. Is he an alcoholic? I don't think he's more of an alcoholic than any other grown man was during that time. I don't think he has always had a drinking problem, but it's something that's developed over the past few months. It's something that's been stimulated by the growing distance between him and his family.
Are you coming up, Frank?
No, I ain't. I'm going around to Callahan's for a drink. And if Rose ain't home when I get back, there's gonna be trouble.
And he, a rock being worn down through the years, he's just tired. You can hear it in his music with all the boom, 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 boom.
It's time we got back to the way things used to be.
He's very honest, very to-the-point individual. Not to say that the man don't have his flaws, because he is definitely a racist.
You bet I'm right. And if all these lousy foreigners that are running around loose don't like it, why the hell don't they go back to where they came from?
There's nothing wrong with being a foreigner. Many foreigners are good people.
He works long, hard hours. In order for me to understand what that's like in its entirety, I would probably have to go out and get myself a 9 to 10 p.m. job working long, hard hours.
System! The hell with all that radical hooey. I've been a working man all my life, and I ain't got no kick against the system.
We're plenty rich in this country.
You said something.
I don't have time for that. I'm in school right now. But what I can do is replicate what he does in the gym. And whenever I was thinking about what I would do and what exercise I would really emphasize to get into more that kind of headspace, get the kind of idea of what his aches and pains would feel like, the number one thing that came to mind is deadlifts. Bending over and picking up something that weighs more than yourself and picking it up off the floor. I try to incorporate at least one heavy deadlift workout every week. And I did about a month where I was trying very specifically to eat in a caloric surplus. I was kind of doing what they call a bulk in the bodybuilding world. But then when it got closer to the time of the show, I still continued to lift really heavy with these deadlifts. But I also then started doing this thing called carb cycling, which more or less you cycle how many carbs you get throughout the week. Some days high carbs, some days low carbs, some days no carbs, in order to get kind of that really skinny, lean, mean Clint Eastwood kind of look, in order to kind of fit more of the aesthetic of the time, but also maintain that strength and that intimidation that goes really hand in hand with who Frank is. Honestly, this was a truly amazing experience because I could literally see and feel the character development every time or through the course of the weeks and the months preparing for it. Because of the physical exercise, I could literally feel myself becoming more like Frank.
All right, we heard enough of that. You better lay off with all that red talk or you're liable to get your head busted open.
All right, I should argue with a roughneck ignoramus.
Who's an ignoramus? Why you goddamn... Wait a minute. Let me go.
You should be ashamed to talk to an old man like that.
All right, let me go. I ain't gonna do nothing.
The casting choices for this show were nothing short of perfect. And I mean that in all honesty. Everybody that I worked with was not only incredibly talented at singing, but also at acting and character development, and they were absolute pleasure to work with on stage. A great deal of them were actually quite young and fairly inexperienced, at least in a collegiate sense. So it was a lot of fun to see these kids, start really fresh as their first show in a new university, and really just, kind of set the standard. I think Oklahoma City University has a special talent in producing pieces like Street Scene because of the requirements to audition for both the musicals and the operas. I know in my own experience, I did not expect to be in any musicals whenever I entered into the university, and I ended up being in 2 main stage musicals, and it was experience that was just incredible. And it's because of this crossover demand that we're able to put together such a wonderful cast for really the identity of the Street Scene, which is the crossover. It premiered on Broadway, so it has that flavor to it and has all that spoken dialogue, and it has a great deal of demand for dance and performing. So this university is one of the few universities that could really produce this show in the most perfect manner. And I don't mean to brag, but I truly, truly believe that. And we were blessed enough to have, 2 casts of the leads. All the leads, Sam, Rose, Anne, and Frank were double cast. and that allowed us each to kind of see from outside perspective how things were being done, and also for us to have a break from the drama, because it really is kind of taxing to go on stage every day and kind of give it all and yell at each other and be in those high emotional circumstances every day for 2 months. And I have to say, this was probably some of the most beautiful singing I've heard throughout my time at Oklahoma City University. And it really proved to me that, I was really fortunate to go to such a diverse and talented school. Dr. Herendeen is one of the most influential people in my life. He really taught me how to give audiences what they want and to teach an audience what the flavor of the show is going to be and how things are going to be through the show. And he really kind of gave me a way to create an arc and how to be funny and how to be interesting on stage. There are so many people that, they let their students get away with being boring, and not once did he ever let us be boring. And plus, he was a lot of fun. This is one of my favorite memories.
What's going on? Why things so bad? If you ask me, the world is going mad. Look at these newfangled ideas going round. Freedom, divorce, and weight control. Young girls smoking cigarettes, it dresses around their necks, and men coming in, breaking on decent people's hearts. But it ain't gonna be that way around here. You're here. If anyone in my house wants that kind of star, my kids are gonna be brought up right, not running the streets as if they're wild all night. In the old days, we didn't carry on that way, and I'm telling you, they ain't gonna do it today. With me, that stuff will never